So you can see the seconds roll. That means it's recording.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
First thing I want to say is thank you for having me today as a speaker. My name is Omar Tladelpa, and I will be talking about the impartiality of the Supreme Court. Okay. In recent news, right now we're having the Obama Affordable Care Act under attack, or perhaps being assessed and reviewed by the judicial Supreme Court. Whatever they decide is constitutional or not is going to put this law into being a null and void or being put into action, and this will change our lives forever. I'm Omar, and I've been coming to this school for a while. I've taken courses in history, and I took one course in political science. I feel like I'm somewhat qualified to speak in this manner. I did a couple of research on, my hobby is to read articles based on politics. I read a couple books, I watch CNN. I read, a couple of Newsweek articles, for example, from Newsweek and The Economist. And to understand the court's impartiality, I will make reference to the purpose of the Supreme Court and what kind of powers they have. I would make reference to how we appoint justices to the Supreme Court, and how rulings of the Supreme Court can change our lives forever. The basic information about the Supreme Court is that it's one of a third part of our government system for checks and balances. Without the Supreme Court, we would have a legislative branch that would run amok, or a executive branch that would constantly, possibly take away our freedoms. So the Supreme Court's there to watch us and protect us, and make sure that any law that's passed is within the constraints of the Constitution. The Supreme Court, in our Constitution, the Supreme Court's not really clarified that it has the ability to do judicial review. And judicial review is when they are able to view and review a law that if they find unconstitutional, they can completely remove it. And they obtain this power, even though it's not in the Constitution, by a president that was created in 1803 in the case of Marbury versus Madison. And in this particular case, they were able to push and create a precedent for their power in creating judicial review. All this information I was able to acquire by reading my political science book by Michael Ruskin. If you've taken that course, you might have had that book and read that book. And he has a quote that he quotes a Alexander Hamilton on why this is essential a power for the Supreme Court to have. And he says that only the courts could limit legislative authority. However, even though the court gets petitioned in 10,000 cases, they only really listen to 75 out of 80. And secondly, how the Supreme Justices are appointed. They are first primarily the President of the United States would find candidates, and they will appoint their Attorney General to create a list that they will analyze, and normally the President would pick just a few candidates. Then they send this list to the FBI so they could do a background check on these individuals, and once that is done, the President picks one appointee and sends it to the legislative branch, to the Senate. The Senate decides whether this individual is appropriate for the office, and they appoint them by voting on him. If he gets voted on and he gets appointed, he's there for life. So he doesn't get reelected. He doesn't get kicked out unless something severely bad happens. He'll get impeached, but he's there for life. And this is the push for this in particular seat is designated by the President of the United States. In recent times, this process has become very political. So, for example, if you have a Republican president, he is more likely to pick a conservative judicial individual as candidate. If it's a liberal, most likely he's going to pick a liberal individual that references and correlates to his philosophical judicial point of view. They're either activists or they're restrainists. If they're activists, they would go forward and they will try to change the law. In terms of benefiting or correlating with the Bill of Rights. They're focused on protecting our rights, and they're actively searching to constantly fight laws that are obvious, that are somewhat or obviously unconstitutional. If they appoint a restrainist, the individual will normally let the law stand and will not fight laws unless they're obviously, clearly unconstitutional. There was a landmark decision. Finally, I would like to analyze and show two rulings that the Supreme Court has done that clearly shows their power and whether they were activists or whether they were restrainists. In a particular case between Brown versus Board of Education in 1953, the activist approach from the liberal justices, Warren's court, stated, after they came to a ruling, they stated, as Robesky's book says, that segregated public school facilities were inherently unequal because they stigmatized black children and deprived them of the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal opportunity. So this particular court was an activist. They pushed and passed this law knowing that the Congress didn't have the power or the will of the people to push for equality. So they did it on their own. And on the second case that I want to make a point, it's another landmark decision. And this happened more recently, and most of you probably remembered if you're older than, let's say, 20. And that was the election of 2000, Bush versus Gore, where the Supreme Court, 5 out of 4 conservatives voted to turn down the recount of the Florida election, and in essence gave the President Bush the nomination for, our 43rd president of the United States. This is an example of the power that a particular individual in office can provide beyond their 4 or 8 years in office. These individuals can be in the judicial court as a Supreme Court justice for up to 30 years or longer, depending on how long they want to do it, because it's appointed by life. Writer of Newsweek magazine, Peter J. Boyer, describes what happened after the election of the result of the Bush v. Gore election, and stated that the liberal citizens of the United States were unhappy with the results of that particular case. So as we can see, even though it's not really an issue primarily from one side or the other, but it's obvious that impartiality has been created in our courts. And we normally see our courts as being, fair, equal, blind, but in reality, our Supreme Court is really partial. They're either left or right, and that really affects the current, law. In conclusion, I want to say that, obviously state that the Supreme Court, is impartial, and to clarify that, of course, they have the power for judicial review, as you remember, and that presidents appoint, they could nominate, but the Senate appoints the individual for a justice. And as I said before about the rulings, that these rulings can change our lives forever. Of course, Brown versus Board of Education has allowed a lot of individuals to obtain their rights, and rightfully so. And I just want to leave you with this quote from William Shakespeare: "Ignorance is the curse of God. Knowledge is wing wherewith we fly to heaven." And thank you for your time.